The mansion was vast. Its walls adorned with gold, framed portraits, chandeliers glittering like captured stars, and a silence so deep it seemed capable of swallowing secrets whole. When Isabella first stepped through those grand double doors, clutching her cleaning gloves and letter of employment, she had no idea that within a week, her entire life would change. She had accepted the job out of sheer desperation. Her little daughter, Emma, was ill, and the hospital bills were suffocating. Isabella needed money, no matter the cost. But the moment her eyes lifted to the portrait in the great hall, her breath caught in her throat. There he was. The man from her past. Immortalized in oil and gold. Her hands trembled, her world tilted, and memories she'd buried came rushing back. The man in that painting was the father of her child. Before we dive deeper into this emotional story of love, loss, and destiny, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps us share more tales that remind the world of compassion, forgiveness, and the beauty of second chances. Isabella's employer, Mrs. Eleanor Grant, was a woman of quiet command. Elegant, composed, and always in control. Her late husband had built the Grant estate, one of the city's grandest homes. Its walls whispered stories of wealth, legacy, and pride. Isabella was assigned to the West Wing, responsible for cleaning the old library and dining rooms. She worked silently and diligently, hoping to remain invisible. Yet, her gaze was often drawn to that one portrait. The one that seemed to stare back at her heart. The man in the painting wore a dark suit, his blue eyes both kind and distant. He looked exactly as she remembered him. Alexander. The man who had once promised her forever before disappearing from her life without a word. 5 years earlier, Isabella had been a simple young woman from a small town, working at a bakery and dreaming of a quiet, happy life. Then Alexander appeared. Like sunlight breaking through clouds. He wasn't like the locals. He carried himself with quiet sophistication and mystery. He said he was a traveler, just passing through, yet he came every morning for coffee and every evening for conversation. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and soon Isabella had fallen deeply in love. When she told him she was pregnant, he had turned pale. He held her close, whispered reassurances, and promised he'd return after settling something important. But he never came back. Days turned to weeks, weeks to years. No letters, no calls, only silence. Isabella gave birth alone, raised Emma alone, and carried her heartbreak like a shadow. Now, standing in the Grant mansion, staring at that familiar face framed in gold, she finally saw the truth. Alexander hadn't been just a traveler. He was a Grant. The man in the painting belonged to this house. And to the woman who now signed Isabella's paychecks. Her knees weakened. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she couldn't afford to lose her job. Emma's medical bills depended on her. So she swallowed her pain and kept cleaning. Polishing silver, dusting furniture, pretending not to feel the weight of those painted blue eyes watching her. Days passed quietly until one afternoon Mrs. Grant asked Isabella to dust the portraits in the main hall. Her heart raced as she approached Alexander's image. She reached up, her gloved hand trembling as she wiped the frame. He was a good man. Mrs. Grant's voice said softly behind her. Isabella froze. My son, the older woman continued. He died 5 years ago in a car accident. Such a tragedy. The world seemed to collapse around Isabella. 5 years ago. That was when Alexander vanished. That was when Emma was born. Tears blurred her vision. The truth struck her like lightning. He hadn't abandoned her. He had died. All those years of anger, sorrow, and loneliness had been built upon a misunderstanding. Her knees buckled, and she gripped the frame for balance. Mrs. Grant frowned with concern. Are you all right, dear? Before she could stop herself, the words escaped Isabella's lips. Ma'am, why is the father of my daughter in your portrait? The room fell utterly silent. Mrs. Grant's face went pale as her gaze darted between Isabella and the painting. After a long, breathless pause, she whispered, Your daughter. Isabella nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her name is Emma. She's 5, she looks just like him. Mrs. Grant's hands trembled as she reached for her pearls. The shock was written all over her face. Alexander had never told his family anything. His sudden death had left them unaware of the love he'd shared, or the child he'd left behind. The hall was silent except for Isabella's soft sobs. Mrs. Grant gently guided her to the parlor, where sunlight spilled through the tall windows. There, Isabella told her everything. How she met Alexander, how he disappeared, and how she'd raised Emma alone. With each word, Mrs. Grant's expression softened. Her heart broke anew, not just for her lost son, but for the young woman and child fate had left behind. Finally, she reached for Isabella's hand and whispered, "My dear, if what you say is true, then your daughter. She's my granddaughter." For the first time in years, Isabella saw tears in another's eyes, for the man she had once loved. In the days that followed, Mrs. Grant asked to meet Emma. Isabella hesitated, afraid of rejection or losing the little world she'd built. But when the meeting finally happened, something extraordinary unfolded. The moment Emma, with her bright blue eyes and innocent smile, saw her grandmother, she ran straight into her arms as if guided by destiny. Mrs. Grant's heart melted. She wept openly, holding the child close. "You have his eyes, my love," she whispered. From that day forward the once cold mansion filled with laughter again. Mrs. Grant helped pay for Emma's treatments, enrolled her in school, and made sure Isabella never struggled alone. "You're part of this family now," the older woman told her. "Alexander loved you. He would have wanted you both cared for." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Isabella could only whisper, "Thank you." The years of bitterness dissolved into something beautiful. The halls that once echoed with emptiness now rang with Emma's laughter and the warmth of Isabella's cooking. Alexander's portrait still hung in the grand hall, no longer a symbol of loss, but of connection. Each time Isabella passed it, she smiled and whispered, "We're okay now. She's safe." A fate had been cruel, but it had also been kind, uniting hearts torn apart by misunderstanding and time. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kinness. Your support helps us continue sharing tales that remind us of the strength of love, forgiveness, and second chances. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe fate always finds a way to reunite souls meant to be together? And as the evening sun bathed the Grant mansion in golden light, Isabella stood beside Mrs. Grant and little Emma, her heart finally at peace. For the first time in years, she looked at the portrait on the wall and smiled. Not with sorrow, but with gratitude. Because sometimes, the greatest miracles begin with the simplest question. "Mom, why is the father of my daughter in your portrait?"